Welcome everyone to today's webcast, and thank you for joining. My name is Dylan Mulvihill, and I'm an associate here at Celegence. And today we'll be going over how to optimize the return on investment of your RIMS solution. And joining me for today's featured presentation will be Jonathan Sanford, who is a regulatory consultant and expert here at Celegence. If you have any questions about Celegence's capabilities or experiences, feel free to reach out and contact me. But now I would like to go over the agenda for today's webcast. And today's agenda will include an introduction about Celegence from myself. And following that, we will go over the challenges that RIMS pose, the best approaches to take when selecting a solution, things to keep in mind when implementing, and Jonathan's best advice for maintaining data quality, as well as a quick discussion on the adoption, future improvements, and some case studies and examples from us at Celegence. And now following that will be a live Q&A led by Jonathan himself. So just to provide you with a quick background on Celegence, we were formed in 2017 with the intent of improving quality and compliance while reducing the costs for the life sciences industry in the area of regulatory affairs. Now, we serve some of the top global companies in both the device and pharmaceutical sectors, as you can see on the bottom left-hand side here. And Celegence also provides niche regulatory affairs services such as MDR gap analysis, CER writing, device registrations, RIMS support, as well as many other operational and strategic activities required for global compliance for both device and pharmaceutical companies. Now, our offices are located in Chicago, where our headquarters is based, as well as London and Bangalore, India. Now, Celegence's delivery center in India, combined with our large network of global experts, allows us to ensure both high quality and cost efficiency. And you can email me at the bottom of the screen, at the email address at the bottom of the screen with any questions. And with that, I would like to pass things off to Jonathan for our featured presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Dylan. As Dylan mentioned, my name's John Sanford, and I'm currently working as a subject matter expert at Celegence, providing expertise around RIMS system deployments. Previously to this, I'd spent 18 years managing and implementing global document management systems. During today's presentation, I'd just like to take you through some of the lessons learned as far as deploying RIMS systems are concerned, to give you some ideas around what the best questions you may want to consider asking to be able to get the best out of your current or new system. So let's have a look at taking the right approach for selecting a solution. How easy is it to get data into the system, and how easy is it to report out that data? It's very easy to get caught up in flashy presentations from vendors, but it's very important the system is as user-friendly as possible. As with all IT system implementations these days, we need to come up with a robust business case to demonstrate the value of the system to the organization. It's well worth speaking to the vendor to see if they have any business cases that can help you in preparing one for your own organization. Level of automation. RIMS systems contain a lot of repetitive information, so it's important that any system you choose has a level of automation and workflows that allow information to be reused as much as possible, reducing the need to enter the same information multiple times. Total cost of ownership. You need to look at your total cost of ownership from including direct and indirect costs. You need to be able to take into account things like, will you need to backfill for current resources in your organization to allow them the bandwidth to implement the project on time, as well as configuration, training, and migration costs. Conference room pilots, I think, is key for getting your users on board with the system as early as possible. I would highly recommend performing conference room pilots. This allows the users to get actual hands-on experience with the tools rather than relying on screenshots and demos run by the vendors themselves. It's the only real way that the users can actually get the hands-on experience themselves within the system. Will you be able to truly find out the usability of the system? Vendor experience and maturity. Does the vendor have a roadmap detailing system updates and what new functionalities they're working on? Do they have migration capabilities? It's likely that you'll be migrating data from an existing system or even Excel. So it's important to understand what migration capabilities the vendor has, or whether or not you'll need to outsource that to another organization. Look at how the vendor delivers system updates. Are the updates delivered on a yearly or biannual basis, which can require large amounts of resource? Or are they delivered on a more frequent basis, reducing the revalidation and training effort required? What level of validation can the vendor provide you with? These days, validation packages are usually already available, and they've been written by the vendor. They are, after all, know their system the best. So all you would need to do is actually look at amending those scripts to any configurations you've made during your project. And what level of training support can the vendor provide? Do they already have pre-written and user or e-learning training materials that you can leverage to build your own training programs? And finally, looking at post-go live support. Will they be able to assist you in helping users during those critical 6 months of system launch? And are they able to assist you in change management? A successful change management program will be critical in the project. So speak to your vendor and see what experiences they have delivering systems to other customers and how you can leverage that information within your own organization. So now you've chosen your new system, you need to consider how are you going to enter your legacy data into your new system? Things to consider around data integrity from your legacy systems. What I mean by that is, are there any gaps in the data required for your new system that aren't currently in your old system? Think about how accurate your data is within your current system and whether or not you need to correct that data before migrating it into your new system. I would highly recommend this. Performing a cleanup of your data prior to migration. There is nothing that will stall the adoption of a new system quicker than having incorrect data from the very beginning. If we're looking now at data governance, pharmaceutical companies tend to be a little bit behind the curve these days when it comes to data governance. Many large organizations have chief data officers, and they're really responsible for the data integrity and quality within their organization. Really, as far as data governance is concerned, I would come up with a policy looking at who is the owners of the data, and have they been those owners been identified? Look at, is the data seen as a commercial asset? And again, this will really help with buy-in from stakeholders if that data is available. Looking at data quality. So unfortunately, I have found out one of the key reasons for failure of adoption of RIMS systems comes from lack of stakeholder buy-in. It's also unfortunate that RIMS systems are defined as regulatory information management systems. However, a vast amount of the data needed in these systems actually comes from across your whole organization. So it's very important before you go ahead and look at implementing a RIM system that you get buy-in from across the whole organization, both during the execution and maintenance phase. The next thing to consider is looking at how are you going to enter the data into the system. So I've got experience of both centralized and decentralized data entry. I don't think there's any perfect solution, but I think it's worth just going through a couple of the pros and cons. So looking at the pros of a centralized data input model, you may find you'll be able to get a reduction in license costs because most vendors will actually have different costs depending on whether you're a contributor or whether or not you're a consumer to the system. Centralized data input models also reduce the amount of resources needed from experienced regulatory staff. You've got to consider, do you really want highly paid regulatory executives performing what is in essence a data entry role? Or would it be better to outsource this data to an offshore company? I believe you get a higher level of quality when using a centralized team on the basis that they'll be using the system day in and day out and won't need to actually relearn the processes every time they want to put in some data. And obviously there'll be a reduced training burden as you won't need to train as many people on the system. The cons to that centralized data input model is there could be a delay in getting the data from the regulatory executives through to the centralized data input team. And also there's a lack of ownership of the data. If you are not responsible for entering that data into the system, I find that a lot of times it never gets to the top of people's to-do lists. So again, you can have another delay of entering the data into the RIM system. As far as the pros for decentralized go, obviously, if you give that ownership to the regulatory executives and they're accountable for it, they're more likely to make sure the data is entered on a timely manner. But with a decentralized model, again, it's likely that you'll have a high training burden. You'll get those data quality issues because the regulatory executives aren't entering that data on a daily basis and therefore have to relearn the processes. Regulatory professionals are spending time on data entry, and is that really their skill set? And also you could have higher license costs. Another aspect when we're looking at maintaining data quality is setting up your KPIs. It's important when defining your KPIs, you make sure they're actually useful for your organization and you're not just collecting them for collecting sake. I've had experience where we've defined hundreds of KPIs just for the very fact that it looks good that we've got hundreds of KPIs, but all we did is collect them and they were never actually used. So make sure you know what you're going to use those KPIs for and make sure they're fit for purpose. KPIs should be defined to maintain a level of quality within your systems. You will have both internal as well as external metrics and KPIs. The external KPIs will be driven by the health authority timelines, and the internal ones should be driven by your process improvements. Collection of KPIs. It can take a long time to collect APIs. So consider or not whether you can collect them and automate that collection, or whether or not you do actually have to collect them manually. And again, how will you present those KPIs to your organization? Generally speaking, I find that senior members of organizations prefer nice dashboards rather than just lists of Excel reports. So really think about why you're collecting them, make sure they stay current within the organization, and annually assess them to make sure they're delivering what you need. So looking at potential integrations. As I mentioned previously, information within your RIMS system will come from a number of different sources. It's worth considering what integrations you have and how you're going to collect them within your RIMS system. You can look at direct integrations with things like your drug safety or quality systems, or maybe look at a data warehouse integration. The advantages of data warehouse integrations is that it allows you to translate the data into your RIM naming convention before entering it into your system, as well as aligning with those external vocabularies. As health authorities require more and more data from us, it's important that we can seamlessly pass information from our internal system into our RIM system and then to our health authorities systems as well. So just make sure that any system integrations you have will also work with those health authority systems. Obviously, this is very important, especially considering the SPORE initiatives and the upcoming IDMP regulations. So the key questions really to look at is when you're looking at systems integrations is identify what those systems are you would like to integrate with and what data you need from those systems. And also, where is the single source of the truth? It is likely a lot of your systems will contain, excuse me, will contain multiple copies of the same piece of data. So it's very important to work out where that single source of the truth is located. As with most IT systems, change management is a key to success. You need to look at your user base and assess whether there are any reasons for resistance to change in using the new system. It's much easier to try and address these resistances prior to go live with the system rather than once you've gone live. I find you'll get much better adoption of the system if you actually manage to address any reluctances to use the system prior to going live. So once the system has gone live, obviously that's only the start of the journey. You want to look at logging any issues in the aid of continuous business improvement. Make sure your users are being listened to. It really does turn users off to using a system if they've come up with ideas about how to improve it and they're not listened to. Employ those system champions. Those system champions will be key in helping you able to deliver change within your organization. And also look at evaluating new technologies as they come along. Natural language processing can turn unstructured data into structured data, which then you could import into your RIMS system. That's going to be a key for the future in trying to improve data quality by automating that data entry process. So, in conclusion, stakeholder buy-in is absolutely critical. And that stakeholder buy-in is not just from regulatory, it goes all the way through the organization. Assess the current quality of your data, identify any potential gaps in that data before looking at importing or migrating data into the system. Define where your single source of the truth is. Okay, if there's a piece of data that comes from a different system and that's the source of the truth, then make sure that that is documented. Use the right resources for data input. I say I am a big believer in a centralized data input model. It really does help with data quality in my experience. And lastly, keep looking at those new technologies. Automate, automate, automate. It's quite old-fashioned if you think about it, that we're still entering data manually by using a keyboard into a computer system. And I think the real future will come from handing these kind of processes over to artificial intelligence and things like structured content authoring to be able to actually migrate the data directly from the source documents into the RIM system. I hope that's been helpful for you. I'm now going to hand over to Dylan.
Thank you so much, John, for that presentation. Before we get into a couple case studies here, I'm just going to briefly go over some of the services and capabilities we have at Celegence. Now, this is an overview listing out our complete capabilities. And as you can see, of course, it's a long list, but we do have the expertise to cover the entire end-to-end spectrum of product lifecycle management, from ECTD publishing to labeling services, and even all the way to regulatory writing as well. Now, if you want a complete list of this, you can obviously explore our website, but you can reach out to me as well, and I can provide you more information. But the first pillar here covers regulatory consulting, which is more of an advisory consulting role, whereas the next four are more related to operational support, with our focus being post-clinical and pre-approval in terms of marketing authorizations and providing region-specific support, including content creation, translation, and communication. Now, I would like to go into our first case study. Now, in this RIMS and compliance data management case study, a major global pharmaceutical company was looking to enhance their operating platforms aimed to improve their current business environment by managing their global regulatory data and metadata for XEVMPD and OMS and RMS maintenance services in the EEA. And using Celegence and our Center of Excellence working model, we're able to establish and define KPIs and deliver timely and high quality deliverables. Now moving on to the next one. In this case, a major global biopharmaceutical company needed to streamline their operations for the regulatory affairs activities, and this time including as well XEVMPD submissions, document formatting, publishing, and submissions to health authorities, and RIMS data collection and management. And again, through our Center of Excellence model, we were able to achieve 100% quality and timeline delivery performance, despite tight timelines given by our client and their Indian health authority. But they also were able to see a reduction in the total cost of ownership, including the resources, tools, as well as other operational costs by using Celegence. And that wraps us up here. But I just want to quickly go over some additional resources and references from us at Celegence. Now you can explore the Celegence website to see a selection of case studies, explore our full collection of services and capabilities, and read more in depth on them. And you can even stay up to date on industry news with our blog content as well. To view past webinars, you can explore our website or our YouTube page. And please contact me at the email address at the bottom of the screen to speak with our team of experts or to learn more about Celegence as a whole. Thank you.